So we're back with another spot-on chat with Rebecca Monet. I'm Bonnie Dillabo, your host, and today we're going to be talking about stages of growth. Rebecca has a lot of really good information about this for us today, and welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you. It's good to be here again.
Well, we had so much fun last time, and I learned so much, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to talk about this because, as you mentioned before, it's one of the important elements that are missed by, we talked about personality tests last time, and it's one of the important things that missed in just a personality test. We're getting specific now with franchisors and their needs in order to assess a franchisee. And so the stages of growth is something that needs to be taken into account. So tell me, what are the stages of growth?
Well, basically, the stages of growth is a concept that goes all the way back to 1960 with W.W. Rostow, who first wrote about the 5 stages of growth in his book, The Stages of Economic Growth, basically addressing the stages of growth that governments and economic systems go through. A little bit later, in 1983, Neil Churchill and an associate of his, Virginia Lewis, published their white paper, their research paper on the 5 stages of small business growth. And that article was released by Harvard Business Review. And basically, it identified predictable crises a company can expect within each stage of growth. That's what Neil Churchill and Virginia Lewis were addressing. And then it also identified the elements of opportunity influencing the evolution to the next stage of growth. So every stage of growth has its opportunities and, of course, its crises. And Neil Churchill and Virginia Lewis sort of memorialized that in their paper. Furthermore, they identified more predictably what those issues are going to be. And, of course, Zoracle uses both Rostow's work and Churchill's work in looking at franchise systems. In fact, we're not unique in that because many companies, including Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Anderson, any large consulting firm uses the stages of growth methodology in helping companies mitigate risk and, of course, seize opportunities that each of these stages of growth will provide. So the biggest difference, honestly, Bonnie, between this sort of stair-step or tiered approach on a non-franchising business evolution that Churchill described and the franchise business model is that franchising is circular in nature in how it evolves. And ironically, Rostow addressed that in his work around government and economic growth, but Churchill did not address that. So here at Zoracle, we look at those two pieces, the circular nature versus the stair-step nature of how a franchise system evolves. So franchising is not linear, nor is it tiered, because the franchisee with whom the franchisor is interdependent is also evolving. Sometimes they're doing that in tandem, sometimes they're not. Thus, it provides this kind of crazy, ongoing wild card for the franchisor to deal with. So Zoracle, therefore, has taken this circular theory of Rostow and this tiered stages of growth that Churchill introduced and combined it with Dr. Claire Graves' work in spiral dynamics to address the evolution as well as the, let's call it, interdependency of the franchisee-franchisor relationship and how that works over a long period of time. So to answer your question, the Zoracle stages of growth are bottom line determined by looking at a company's managerial style, their organizational values and their structure, their formal systems, what their major strategic goals are, how involved the founder or concept originator is. As we know in franchising, when a system evolves and grows, the franchisee needs to evolve and change also. That doesn't always happen. We need our franchisee to complement and not overlap what the franchisor is doing. This, of course, will create long-term interdependent relationships, providing for the franchisee that will validate well, perform optimally, and, of course, retain for the long run. That's what we're all looking for.
Okay, so there are stages of growth in governments. There are stages of growth in companies and societies in general. What are the stages of growth a franchise company goes through?
Good question. And you're right. It affects whether it's a stage of growth or evolution of a child or a business or a government or an economic system. There's always these evolutionary processes. In franchising, there are 5 predictable stages of growth. The first stage is what we call entrepreneurial. It's an early-stage franchise company that focuses on working on creating the best widget, the best product, the best service. Stage 2 franchise system, or what we call a partnership system, is where the franchisor is acting in conjunction with the franchisee to incorporate best practices and set up systems that can be replicable. A stage 3 franchise system is what we call a plug-and-play system, where we're focused on the franchisee, we're clear on what our value proposition is, and we're strong in training and support. A stage 4 franchise system, or what we call an empire organization, has strong brand recognition, often executing on the goal to be the market dominant player. They do so through acquisitions and through mergers. A stage 5 organization franchise system is what we call a hybrid. A hybrid company is one which is renewing, rebranding, refreshing, and at times even downsizing and or spinning off other franchise concepts.
We're going to address each of these stages of growth in our future spot-on chats, but today let's just focus on stage 1. It sounds like there's a lot that we need to learn about each of these different kinds of stages of growth where it applies to different franchise systems. What are its challenges, opportunities, both for the franchisee and the franchisor, and what distinguishes a stage 1 franchise system? Also, what are the attributes of a stage 1 franchise company? I know that's a mouthful, but, the curious minds want to know.
I love that you have a curious mind, honey. Well, let's start with the attributes of a stage 1 franchise system. A stage 1 franchise system is basically an entrepreneurial company. It's a startup franchise system. We recognize them typically because the founder is still at the helm. He or she has come up with the concept, the better widget, the better idea. He or she is managing most aspects of the business. They may have a handful of overworked, underpaid employees are wearing different hats, sometimes doing sales, sometimes doing marketing, sometimes doing the technical stuff, but they're all hardworking and shifting from place to place, depending on the needs of that franchise system at that point. So the focus of a stage 1 franchise system is on the product. That's the biggest piece that we want to keep in mind, of focusing on the product and how to leverage and position and fine-tune that product or that service. So naturally, this is a very dynamic organization. Systems aren't in place yet. Training is not in place yet. Support systems aren't in place yet, because what we're still trying to figure out is how do we get this product or service to the marketplace in the best way possible and differentiate ourselves. So that is what we call an entrepreneurial franchise system.
This reminds me of a book I read called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And it sounds to me like this is exactly what he was describing, in a person that they get excited about a product, they put a business together, and they're just forging forward as fast and hard as they can, but they don't yet have any real systems in place yet.
Correct. And a franchisor is no different than the mom and pa that has a similar idea down the street. The difference is the franchisor has chosen to roll out that product or service through a business model called franchising. It's a marketing strategy. But an early-stage franchisor, like what we're talking about today, which is the entrepreneurial franchise system, is typically a concept that's first to market. It's the first time this product or service or idea or concept is in the marketplace. But you're right. There's not a lot of legs underneath it at this point, not a lot of systems or processes, and maybe not even a ton of money at this point for them to launch.
Well, obviously, I mean, we all know about startups, right? But what are, let's say I decided that I wanted to be a franchisee for X franchise, and they're in this entrepreneurial stage. What are the kinds of things that I might find challenging going in?
Great question, Bonnie. As a prospective franchisee, there are some challenges, of course, getting involved with a stage one or entrepreneurial franchisor. First off, they don't have the systems and processes in place. They don't have the support in place. They don't have the training in place at this point. So there's going to be some challenges as it relates to dealing with the stage one franchisor. So the resources are just not there. If you are a prospective franchisee that can't handle chaos and can't handle things that are dynamic, a stage one franchise system is not a good choice because this system is going to evolve. It's predictable. It's going to happen. And the challenges that the system is having now is it definitely is dynamic and it's changing and there's chaos. Even the product will evolve and change. So those are going to be some of the challenges any prospective franchisee is going to run into.
It sounds also to me like with a new franchise, the franchisee might have opportunities to have a lot of input into the product and the systems and the training.
Good point. Good point. An early-stage franchisor is looking for a franchisee with a particular set of talents that is able to be first in the marketplace, loves a good challenge, doesn't mind taking risk, probably has some really good sales and marketing skills, and will go into the marketplace and open things up. And that prospective franchisee that is willing to take a risk on an early stage franchisor is rewarded with many benefits, including the reward that you just mentioned, which is the ability to have a say in policies, procedures, best practices. At some point, in fact, the franchisor will come to those early-stage franchisees and say, how are you doing this? Tell us what you're doing so we can put it in procedural manuals and organize it in a way that makes sense. So lots of benefits to the franchisee. Another benefit to the franchisee is better terms, okay? Better terms in that they can negotiate with a franchisor who wants to go into a particular territory, much more liberal contracts, terms, royalties, maybe even forgiveness on royalties, a buy-in that's lower than later stage franchisees that come into the system. There's not as many rules or as many accountabilities for that franchisee that's coming in. So they're basically given a lot of latitude. The prospective franchisee is given a lot of latitude in how to run their businesses. And, of course, with the willingness to take those risks and with the willingness to step out and try something that's been unproven, usually come the financial rewards with it also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see where that would be the case. And, of course, the franchisor in this stage of growth, that's a particularly challenging time for the franchisor because the concept is new and the branding isn't even firmly in place yet. They don't have any real traction in the marketplace yet in terms of people recognizing who they are and what they're about. What are the other challenges a franchisor might have during this stage of growth?
You actually mentioned most of them. They're typically understaffed and with limited resources. Even if they have investors, there's limited human capital to execute. And, of course, no real traction in the marketplace or recognition in the marketplace. So they're having to literally build on the fly. So these are definitely some of the challenges. But like with the franchisee, there are benefits to the franchisor in that frequently those early franchisees that come in act more as true hunters, true business people, true entrepreneurs. So frequently they're going to attract aggressive, oftentimes well-funded franchisees that will offload some of those responsibilities and build in those marketplaces. So again, it's kind of a trade-off. There are challenges and there are benefits for being in this stage one. The franchisor can focus on the product, can focus on making it the best possible while allowing highly competitive, highly aggressive franchisee to build market share, market awareness. The key, especially if you're a stage one franchisor, is selecting that right franchisee, right? Because he's not an employee. We can't manage him. We can't train them. We can't do any of those things. We are limited as franchisors what we can do with that franchisee. So we have to be very selective that we find a franchisee, particularly an early-stage franchise system, that complement our value proposition, complement our values, our culture, and is willing to, in that local marketplace, do what's necessary to grow that business, while the franchisor can focus on the systems, on the product, and on those kinds of things. So it's kind of a divide and conquer that happens.
Right. What about, I'm sure there are some franchises that we may recognize that are in this stage of growth. Can you tell me some stories about some franchises that you're aware of in this stage of growth?
Well, and that's the interesting part about stage one. These are small companies. These are first to market. These are going to be companies that you don't recognize name yet. Now, all companies were in stage one at one point, right? And then they grow and they evolve, and boom, now we recognize that particular company name. But having been in this industry 20 years, I've seen franchisors start in stage one, and it's a name that nobody's heard of. And within, a handful of years, it's a common name, a brand that we're all talking about. I remember even Great Clips, which now is on every corner that you see, where you can go in and get your haircut. Where it was small and no one heard of Great Clips. So that's the thing about a stage one company, is you're not going to, as a prospective franchisee, go, hey, I want to own one of those. You're not even going to have heard of that at this point. So you're going to have to be introduced, or you're going to have your ear to the ground looking for stage one companies and these kinds of opportunities. And trust me, Bonnie, someone who's wired as a stage one entrepreneurial franchisee is always looking for stage one companies to get involved with, because they know they can work in their local marketplace and grow market share, and that there's a lot of benefits for coming early in, being an early adopter.
Do you find that franchisees that are the stage one type franchisee may often own more than one franchise that are stage one franchises?
More than one location often, yes. In fact, most early franchisees will negotiate regional development opportunities where they literally purchase a state or several zip codes, and then they will sell pieces of their territory to other franchisees. So it's very common for someone wired as an early stage franchisee to buy multiple unit opportunities and regional opportunities, and the franchisor exploits that. They love that they can quickly, with a single contract, with a single relationship, have locations popping up over a short period of time with someone who has that level of commitment and that level of assertiveness and ability to execute. So absolutely, it's not uncommon to have several locations.
So you've got a franchisor, and they're in this early stage of growth. Is there some advice that you would give them about how to proceed?
Yes, I think there would be several pieces of advice I would recommend to stage one franchisor. One, never pretend you're anything but that. So often I have seen franchisors put out to the public that they are further along in their evolution, claiming they have systems in place, training in place, support in place, things tested, when indeed that may not be fully true. So be bold, be confident that you are a stage one franchisor. And as a stage one franchisor, you're going to have bumps and you're going to have benefits and you're going to have detriments. But by being honest and straightforward, you're going to attract a stage one franchisee, someone who says, wow, I'm not the idea guy. I mean, think about this. There are people that come up with the ideas, and there are people who take that idea and they know how to exploit it. That's the kind of relationship you want. So by being straightforward and saying we're a stage one company, which means there are going to be problems, and we're going to be evolving, it will allow you to attract the right franchisee that likes things that are dynamic and can take what is there and begin to create some legs underneath it. So that would be probably the biggest recommendation I would offer. And then the second thing is, as quickly as you can, get clear on the future of the culture that you want to create. Have a basis of a mission statement, of values that you are going to live your business by, and recruit and sell only to prospective franchisees that share that culture, that share those values, because you want these guys to be with you for a while. So the second thing I would recommend for franchisors is to be clear on your values and your culture, not just today, but where you want it to evolve to, and recruit only franchisees that share your values, share your mission, because you want these franchisees to be with you long term. So those are the two biggest things. Be clear where you are. Don't pretend you're further along, because you're going to find the right franchisee if you're clear. And secondly, be clear on your values and your culture, and recruit only towards those individuals that are a good fit. So, and then there's a third recommendation I would give franchisors. It's not uncommon, and I can tell you horror stories of franchisors who have negotiated agreements that were so liberal and so loosey-goosey that a couple of years later they wanted out of that particular agreement, where they give away too much territory, or the royalty is so low, or the buy-in price is so low that the cost of having that franchisee is way too high. So be cautious that in your zeal you don't negotiate agreements that are too liberal on behalf of the franchisee. Yes, you need that franchisee, but they also need you. So hold firm on what you bring to the table, and don't negotiate agreements that just flat out are not a win-win.
I think that's really sound advice. And I actually know of an individual who basically lost their business over that. So that's really good advice. Now, putting the shoe on the other foot, you gave advice to the franchisor. What about the franchisee? Do we have some advice for them too?
The franchisee, I think it's a similar set of advice. If you are looking strictly for something that you can buy, build to a certain extent, and then exit, state clearly that that's what your intentions are to the franchisor. They will understand, and they will help you create an exit strategy. If, on the other hand, you want to build something that's long terms with a franchisor, select that franchisor based on exploiting your core competencies and that you share their culture and their values, and you become a good fit. So a similar set of recommendations. And thirdly, don't overextend yourself. It's common when you see an opportunity with the stage one franchisor to see all blue skies and make promises that you may not be able to fulfill, that you can open 10 locations in a period of time, and you sign an agreement that suggests that you can do that when indeed your budget might allow 3. So be cautious when making commitments, that these are commitments that you can fulfill. Better to underpromise and overdeliver.
Okay, absolutely. Absolutely. That's also very good advice. Now, there's another group of people that Zoracle deals with frequently, franchise brokers. What do you suggest for them?
Our franchise brokers are in a unique situation where they're working with prospective franchisees, either locally or internationally, and they'll get a wide variety of prospective franchisees. So in that situation, take some time to get to know this prospective franchisee. Obviously, the spot-on profile will help you understand what stage of growth this particular prospective franchisee will fit in best. Don't ignore that. Don't put your prospective franchisee in a stage 4 company if they need to be in a stage 2 company. He won't be happy. He won't ramp up well. He will validate poorly, and that will shine back on the advice that the broker has given. So take some time to truly understand who this prospective franchisee is, in particular as it relates to what stage of business he's going to fit in well. And then, equally as important, get to know your franchisor and get to know your franchise system and what makes them tick, and ask what stage of growth they're in, or use our tool to figure out what stage of growth that franchisor is in. And when presenting opportunity A versus opportunity B versus opportunity C, let your prospective franchisee know you selected these 3 concepts based on, in large part, on the stage of evolution. And let that prospective franchisee know, here are the challenges with stage 1. You're going to go in, Mr. and Mrs. prospective franchisee, and you're going to look at the stage 1 company. It's dynamic. It doesn't have but a half a dozen franchisees at this point. It's not validated as strongly as some of the other systems. But the reason I'm choosing this is because of these opportunities and the way you're wired to be able to take advantage of that. But don't be expecting any hand-holding. Don't be expecting a ton of support and training or even systems. Here's what you can anticipate. So again, it's managing the expectations of the franchisee, educating that franchisee on why you selected these 2 or 3 or 4 franchise concepts to present or for them to do their due diligence.
Basically, what I hear is that regardless whether you're a franchisor looking for a franchisee or a franchisee looking for the right franchise opportunity, or a broker who helps franchisees connect with the right opportunity, or the opposite, the franchisor connect to the right franchisee, regardless of which situation you're in, using the Zoracle profile is the ideal tool to make sure that that's going to be a good fit.
It's so important to understand the candidate, the franchisor. We all want, the franchisor wants to succeed, wants to provide for his or her family, wants to leave a legacy, wants to contribute, wants a good challenge. So they need to be in the right stage of growth to do that, in the right franchise system. And a franchisor wants a franchisee that's going to retain well, ramp up well, validate well, perform well. And as we talked about before, Bonnie, it's all about compatibility. It's all about compatibility and complementary core competencies. And so the more we dig in and understand and do our due diligence. Who is this franchise system? Who is this franchisee? Do the two belong together? The better it is for everybody.
And the Zoracle Profile assessment makes that matchmaking quite a bit easier than it would be otherwise.
Yes, it lets the prospective franchisee know on their reports the stages of growth of companies that they would fit in well, and it lets the franchisor know what stage of growth they're on and which franchisees they're looking for. And, of course, the broker, same way, will get reports that lets them know here's a prospective franchisee that would fit well within a stage 2 and stage 3 company or whatever is appropriate for that prospective franchisee.
And on the Zoracle website, for all of our listeners, there are two things that you can try. You can try taking the franchisee assessment, and that doesn't cost anything, and anybody, whether you're a franchisor or a broker or a potential franchisee, anybody can take that test. It's free to take it and to see what it's like and what is reported in that test. You'd be amazed at the information that's in there. You also, for those of you who are brokers or who are franchisors, if you would like to do a free trial of the Zoracle Profile Assessment tool, there is a tab up at the top of the page on ZoracleProfiles.com. At the top of the page, you'll see free trial. Click on that, and it will get you started right away with your opportunity to have this free trial of the Zoracle Profile Assessment. Do you have anything that you'd like to add, Rebecca?
No, I think you covered it all, Bonnie. This is obviously a subject I'm very passionate about, as you can tell. I want my franchisors and my brokers and my franchisees to succeed. That's bottom line. And having a tool that helps them through that maze is just an added little bonus.
Next time, we are going to talk about the stage 2 of growth for franchises, and Rebecca and I will be back with your Spot On Chat. We'll see you then.
All right. Thanks, Bonnie.
Thank you.